Torture, whether as punishment, to set an example, to get information, to get revenge on someone, or simply for fun, is an instrument used by those with sadistic minds. Although they are considered one of the worst acts a human being can commit, many, due to their power and influence, have seen them as necessary and even just. Therefore, today we will explore the 10 most impressive torture machines. Let's start. Certainly, these torture machines were devices designed with limitless cruelty, and each had its own method of inflicting suffering on victims. 10. Judas Cradle, for example, was a brutal form of torture in which the victim was lifted and then repeatedly dropped onto a pointed pyramid. This pyramid hit the person's genital areas or anus, causing immense and prolonged pain. The name watchman referred to the uncomfortable position in which the victim was left, preventing him from sleeping and increasing his anguish. 9. The thumb crush, on the other hand, was a simple but effective torture. It consisted of a mechanical device that gradually crushed the victim's nails, phalanges, and knuckles, extending the pain for days without causing fatal damage, but generating extreme suffering. 8. The saw, used since biblical times, involved hanging the victim upside down to prolong his agony before bleeding to death. The sharp tips of the breast ripper. They were applied to the breasts of women convicted of heresy, quickly tearing them and causing excruciating pain. 7. The garrocha was another ruthless method, where the victim's hands were tied behind his back and slowly raised using a pulley on the ceiling, and then dropped violently, unlocking the condemned man's limbs. 6. The rack was a wooden bed where the condemned man was tied and a crank was turned to tighten the ropes, breaking bones or even tearing off limbs. The wheel, for its part, was a deadly torture where the victim was turned over a lit bonfire, slowly burning him. 5. The vaginal bulb, inserted into the victim's vagina, expanded when activated, producing fatal tears. And the iron lady, a metal structure with sharp spikes inside, enclosed the victim to be penetrated by the spikes when closing the front door. These methods, although ingenious in their malice, represent the darkest of humanity and the abuse of power throughout history. They are testimonies of the cruelty and lack of empathy of those who designed and used them. But we continue with 4, the Iron Maiden. This terrifying machine consisted of a metal sarcophagus with doors in its front. Inside, it had numerous sharp spikes that were strategically arranged to cause maximum damage to the victim. When the victim was locked inside it, the doors slowly closed, trapping her between the spikes that pierced her body. The victim's agony increased as the spikes penetrated deeper, causing fatal wounds and unbearable suffering. 3. The Spanish rack. Similar to the rack mentioned above, the Spanish rack was a long, narrow platform on which the victim was tied, usually with chains or ropes. Then, using a system of pulleys or winches, gradual tension was applied to the victim's limbs, causing dismemberment, fractures, and serious injuries throughout his body. This method was especially cruel and was used to inflict extreme suffering to the prisoners. 2. Impalement. This form of torture was particularly cruel and was often used as public punishment to deter others from challenging the dominant power. It consisted of inserting a long, sharp stake into the victim's anus or vagina and then lifting it so that the weight of the body slowly passed through it. The stake penetrated deep into the victim's body, causing severe internal injuries, bleeding, and unimaginable pain. Impalement was an especially brutal form of torture and execution, designed to inflict maximum suffering before death. But now comes the worst of all. In the history of torture, there is an instrument that stands out for its cruelty, the Bull of Phalaris. This artifact was commissioned by the tyrant of Sicily from an ingenious Greek named Periandros. The idea was to create an effective device to torture and kill the tyrant's enemies. The bull was a hollow structure of pure bronze with a small entrance door, which could only be opened from the outside. Once the victim was inside, a large bonfire was lit under the bull. The temperature was rising rapidly, turning the interior into a deadly oven. The most sinister thing about the Phalaris Bull was its ingenious design to distort the screams of the victim, making them sound like the bellowing of a bull. In addition, smoke escaped through the nostrils and eyes, while the smell of burning meat was camouflaged with incense. The most chilling thing of all was when Phalaris, the same tyrant who commissioned it, decided to test it by putting Periandros, his own creator, inside the bull and lighting the fire. These abhorrent methods are a reminder that there is nothing more terrifying than the imagination of a powerful and sadistic man. Every detail of these infernal machines reflects the twisted mind of those who designed them, feeding their dark desires for control and dominance over other human beings. It may not make sense, but these torture machines were used with the aim of inflicting extreme suffering and causing terror on those who challenged established power or were considered enemies of the state, religion, or authority. They were tools of control and punishment, intended to maintain social order and deter others from committing acts considered deviance or crimes. In addition to their punitive function, many of these machines also had a public spectacle component, intended to humiliate the victim and serve as a warning to those who dared to challenge the status quo. In some cases, they were also used as interrogation tools to obtain confessions or information from prisoners. Therefore, these torture machines were used as instruments of social control, repression and coercion, manifesting the brutality and cruelty of those in power. In the end, these torture machines represent the darkest depths of humanity, where power turns to ruthless cruelty and justice fades into a sea of pain and suffering. They are silent witnesses to times marked by authoritarianism and oppression, where fear and intimidation reign supreme. However, they also remind us of resistance and the fight for human dignity in the midst of the most extreme adversity. Through the centuries, they have endured as macabre monuments to man's capacity to inflict suffering on his fellow human beings, but also as reminders of the need to never forget the lessons of the past and to work tirelessly for a better future. World where justice, compassion and respect for human life prevail over brutality and hatred. In every turn of a pulley, in every cry of pain, in every victim who suffered in silence, lies a warning and a call to humanity not to repeat the horrors of the past, but to move towards a future where the dignity and well-being of everyone is the top priority. What do you think? Thanks for joining us. If you liked this video, don't forget to like it, share your comments and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories. Until next time.